Well, hello, everyone. I'm Jon Evans of WECT News. Once again, happy to be here to moderate this debate sponsored by the League of Women Voters of the Lower Cape Fear and the town of Oak Island. Over the next couple of hours, you're going to hear from candidates running for mayor of this great community and also candidates running for town council. The first forum, we will do the two mayoral candidates. And the way it's going to work is as follows. Each of the candidates will have 2 minutes for an opening statement. Then I will ask questions that were submitted to the League of Women Voters by citizens and residents here in Oak Island. And then at the end of the 8 questions that we have, we will give each one of the mayoral candidates a 1-minute closing statement as well. And then in an hour, we will hear from the 7 candidates who are running for seats on town council. As we get started, let me first introduce both of our candidates that we have this evening running for mayor in Oak Island. Let me first, as we go alphabetically, introduce you to the incumbent mayor, Mr. Ken Thomas. Mr. Thomas, thank you for joining us once again.
Thank you.
And the challenger this year running for mayor in Oak Island is Liz White. Ms. White, we appreciate you joining us as well. How about a round of applause for both of our candidates? And we're going to start with, as I said earlier, the opening statement. And again, we'll go alphabetically with this. 2 minutes for an opening statement, and we'll go to Ken Thomas. Mr. Thomas, you have 2 minutes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, John. Thank you, League of Women Voters. When I come out of the Army, I started a heavy equipment rental business. It has been very prosperous because of my leadership on it, because of my budget, and because of a vision to grow every year. The town of Oak Island is also a business, should be run like a business. And during my tenure, it has been very prosperous, the best ever. And that said, we have to help the town. We have sought grants in every way possible. Stormwater, beach, we have left nothing unturned, and we've really worked at that. We get the stormwater grants, and we've hired an engineer to help us with that. But the most important part is the beach. The beach is our economic development. That's why every one of you are here, that beach. And we do have to maintain it. And I do have a 5-year plan to renourish the beach. This year, first year, we're doing East Beach, $15 million, no sand assessment. Next year, we're going to do West Beach, no sand assessment. And coming up after that, for a total of rounding out $69 million, is $36 million for the next renourishment. We have to do this, but without sand assessments, it is our place. It is what we got to do, and we're going to keep and maintain the friendly beach town. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, for her opening statement this evening, we will go to mayoral candidate Liz White. Ms. White, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. My clock started early. Thank you. Thank you for being here, everyone, and for being informed voters. And I also thank the League for this opportunity. And John, thank you for moderating. I want to be clear. My quest for mayor is about one thing, and that is to preserve the community that is our homes. So people still ask, who is Liz White? Well, I'll tell you. I'm a recent widow, married for 33 years to a retired, fully disabled Marine. In addition to that, I have had blessed to have very successful career and in roles where I've been able to make a difference. I'm an effective leader, one that is proactive, not reactive. I'm a creative problem solver and a capable planner. I meet issues head on, and I'm not shy of a challenge. I'm decisive once I have the research in hand and have been able to explore the options. I stand by my decisions. And that's not always the case with my opponent, who seems to change his as the wind blows. No matter the issue, be it beach preservation, stormwater management, restoration of our rec center, trust that I have the skills to bring these projects to fruition.
Okay, ma'am, thank you. That's the end of your 2 minutes. Thank you, ma'am. Ms. White, I'm going to ask you to respond first to the first question. The town of Oak Island appears to have many challenges, as suggested by the questions submitted to the league in preparation for this forum. Is there one challenge that you are the most concerned about, that you think should be the most important thing on the mayor's to-do list? And how do you propose to address it? You have 90 seconds.
Probably the most pressing issue that we have is the beach, and whether or not there is an assessment that accompanies replacing sand. My problem is it makes no sense to move sand if we're not going to protect the sand that we have.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Thomas, I ask you, sir. The town of Oak Island appears to have many challenges, as suggested by the questions submitted to the league in preparation for this forum. Is there one challenge that you are most concerned with, that you think should be the most important item on the mayor's to-do list? And how might you address that? You have 90 seconds, sir.
The beach renourishment is the most important issue. You cannot talk about anything else to start off with. I laid out a 5-year plan, $69 million without sand assessments. We live here. That is, if you let that beach go, you'll see taxes go sky high. You'll see the value of your properties go low. That is our economic development. We have to do it, but we've got to be wise to do it. Use my 5-year plan. Use this $69 million. And that is what we got to do. There is no other number one. I was going to talk about stormwater, but it's one. But anyway, we got to do it. We got to keep the beach, the friendly family beach. You got to be able to go over the berm and lay down and get a tan at high tide. Nothing else will work. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The next question, Mr. Thomas, I'm going to ask you to respond first to, and it has to deal with beach renourishment and the sand tax, as many are calling it. What are your thoughts, and what leadership role do you plan to take to get consensus on the best way to address this issue? You have 90 seconds.
Well, begin with, the mayor don't really hardly ever votes. You got to get consensus among the town councilmen. You got to get them to agree to it. And that sometimes is a challenge, but they have got to look at the plans. They have got to do their economic study and realize they have no other choice. We have got to see options. We got to see more ways to find more grants. It is a lengthy process. It is not easy, as the ad hoc committee knows, to come up with all this, but we have to work at it. And got to get the town councilman on board with this. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. White, the beach renourishment and the sand tax are the major issue that many are concerned with here in Oak Island. What are your thoughts on how to address it, And what role would you take on building consensus to the best way of addressing it? You have 90 seconds.
Thank you. First of all, if we're not talking about an engineered beach, there is no sand assessment. I'm very concerned about the sand assessment because if we, with some forethought, look forward and to the impact it will have on individuals with restricted incomes of all walks of life, they'll be forced to move, which is an economic challenge for them. Those houses will then be sold. Many will probably come down and bigger houses built. And we will lose that small beach town culture of our island basically for time to come. I do believe there are ways to study the beach and work at the areas that erode the most. So between 63rd and east and 55th or so west, and then of course at the west end, which is its own distinct problem. But to understand why those areas erode and continue to support them, but an engineered beach, the same solution down a beach that has many different characteristics makes absolutely no sense to me.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. White, I'm going to ask you to respond first to the next question, if I may. Communication is an important part of running local government. What do you consider to be your best communication skills? And how would you use those skills in working with other council members and various town departments? You have 90 seconds.
Thank you. I work really well in one-on-one and in small groups. Not that I can't speak in front of groups. I'm way out of practice with that, but when you're actually able to look someone in the eye and have a conversation, I build rapport readily by building trust, and that is basically the job of a mayor, is to be in and of the community, to work with people, to be an effective listener to what their concerns are, and be able to take those back to the council, and be able to then coalesce those concerns into potential solutions or suggestions. Yes, the council is the one that votes, but the mayor guides that discussion and shapes the agenda for the town council.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Thomas, communication being an important part of running local government, what do you consider to be your best communication skills, sir? And how would you use those skills in working with other members of town council and the various departments in Oak Island? You have 90 seconds.
Well, first of all, she's correct about that. And the leader should convey his thoughts and also listen. You got 2 ears, 1 mouth, and listen to get so that you see what the needs of the people are and listen to them. I've spoke with 1,000 people probably since my tenure. I've had hundreds of phone calls, but to communicate, first you gotta listen. And once you listen and understand what people's problems are, they don't, multiple times a day I have people tell me their problems, their concerns. I do communicate with them, and that's what you have got to do. Whether it be little groups, large groups, it don't matter. You've got to be willing to listen and then communicate with them. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And Mr. Thomas, I'm going to ask you to respond first to the next question. How would you describe the aesthetics or the appearance of the commercial district in Oak Island? And do you have any ideas on how it might be improved if necessary? You have 90 seconds, sir.
They're working on that. The UDO of 2018, they had several small businesses would have built here had it not been for the 35% glass rule, which meant that the front had to be more than 35%, the sides facing the street had to be more than 35%, and that is coming up, I think, in the November or December agenda. That is the biggest holdup we have in putting small businesses here. That's got to be changed. The buildings do have to be aesthetically pleasing, but you can't burden the cost so high that they don't build. And I know of two businesses that was going to build and they didn't build for that reason. Give them a chance to, and they're building these buildings with 140-mile-an-hour wind zone, and with this glass rule, and that's why they ain't getting built, you can't cool them. You can't put a restaurant in one with all that glass. There's no way to keep it cool. We need, the biggest holdup is our UDO rules of 2018, and we seriously got to work on them. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. White, how would you describe the aesthetics or the appearance of the commercial district here in Oak Island? Do you have any ideas on how it might be improved if necessary? 90 seconds, ma'am.
Thank you. I came here to Oak Island for its charm as a beach town, and that is what I want to preserve. I would love to have a downtown area that is safe, is walkable, and maintains the charm that they have now. That doesn't mean it cannot improve. As far as improving concerned, this town belongs to you. You're the taxpayers. I would work with you, the taxpayers, the homeowners, to establish focus groups, to collect information, to learn what it is that you would want, and then bring the information for those focus groups back to a group of citizens who then could react to models that would show the type of new buildings that would work well with the old. But I would ultimately leave it in the hands of the taxpayers to develop and for the council to review and hopefully pass.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. White, I'd like to get the first response to the next question from you. Do you believe codes are uniformly and equitably enforced in Oak Island? And can you address the role the mayor plays, if any, when it comes to code enforcement? 90 seconds for you.
The mayor has no role in code enforcement, according to NC state law. However, they can be the go-between from the citizens and the town staff. I would hope that in most cases that the codes are enforced equitably. However, I know of several situations where that is not the case. And this has to do with both add-ons, new equipment, and putting auxiliary structures in the yard. And there just seems to be, some are challenged seemingly unnecessarily, while others are given a pass for things that skirt the outside of what the code actually says. And the codes are guides. They are not ordinances per se for the town to use in making decisions. But I would like to see greater equity in how that they're enforced. And I think the mayor plays a role as a spokesperson for the people.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Thomas, do you believe the codes are uniformly and equitably enforced in Oak Island? And if you can, address the role the mayor plays, if any, when it comes to code enforcement. 90 seconds.
First of all, developmental services is the people that are supposed to be in charge of code enforcement, not the mayor, not the town council. They can play a role in helping, but keeping things where they're supposed to be, that's where it's at. They write the code violations. Then if it ain't done, it moves on up to legal actions, but the mayor should point it out, other people should point it out, but it is not the role of the mayor and code enforcement. They shouldn't get in it. That's an area they need to stay out of. They can point out to developmental services when they see things that's wrong. But our process of our municipal government, does not go there. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And Mr. Thomas, I'll ask you for the first response to the next question. Traffic, parking, and road conditions in Oak Island are all concerns that citizens submitted questions about. I'm going to ask you to choose one of these problems that you think is the most pressing and explain what you as mayor would do to address it. Once again, traffic, parking, and road conditions. You have 90 seconds.
We are probably approaching 90% build out. So traffic is not going to get that much worse as far as people here. Parking is a big issue, and it's a big issue in July. That's something they can look at. I keep hearing people say, well, we'll do paid parking for the beach renourishment. North Carolina law do not let paid parking go to beach renourishment. It lists the things it has to do there. The road conditions are terrible when they got tore up for putting in the sewer system, and they're working on that. And this year, I think we've done $1.65 million working on the road, and all three of them is a problem, and I think they're pretty well equal in that. What, are we going to go to paid parking? Well, there has to be a study done on that. Are we going to do more road repairs as we get our money? That's it. Traffic, 90% build out, yes, we're going to go to 100, but I'd rate them equally. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. White, traffic, parking, and road conditions are all concerns that citizens submitted questions about for this forum. I'm going to ask you to choose one of the problems you think is the most pressing and explain what you as mayor would do to address it. You have 90 seconds.
Thank you. I also will go along with parking, except we can't look at parking in isolation. Parking has to dovetail with beach access. That's how people get to the beach. That has to dovetail with how they get to the sand. I would support a paid parking system that is administratively doable, where we could reasonably recover our costs and potentially make it an economic income, but its primary function is to basically manage beach traffic. And it has to, any plan, so I always talk about a comprehensive beach plan, especially one for the future, much past 5 years, that is, covers all of the aspects of the beach, how it will be maintained, how it will be nurtured, and that would include parking. It's a separate project, but you can't think of it in isolation.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. White, I'm going to ask you to respond first to the next question. I'd like you, in 90 seconds, to tell us what you think are the best and, I don't want to use the word worst, but I will, things about Oak Island. How would you continue to capitalize on the best, and what do you do to improve on the worst? 90 seconds.
I would say by far the best part of Oak Island are its people. Its people are its resources. It's the reason we're here. I have great neighbors. I'm sure I hear many of you that also have terrific neighbors. Not that we disagree, but I think we truly love our community, and that's something certainly to capitalize on. I think there's a great deal of expertise within our community that we don't use. It goes wasted. We have stopped listening to our citizens, and that's really unfortunate because there are experts who actually live here. Second to that, I think what would work better is in our town administration and in our council. I think too much of it operates behind closed doors. This is a democracy. Democracies are designed to work in the open and with the participation of the citizens. I'd like to see a lot more transparency. I'd like to see explanations shared before there are votes. I would like to see less in the consent agendas, particularly when it has to do with buying property. Our government is in and of the people, and I see it having diminished that role.
Thank you, ma'am, very much. Mr. Thomas, I'd like to ask you, sir, in 90 seconds to tell us what you think is the best thing about Oak Island and how you continue to capitalize on that. And then what is the worst thing about Oak Island and how do you improve it?
The best thing in Oak Island is our ocean. That is God-given to us. That's the best thing here. It's the reason we're here. We need to maintain it. The best man-made asset we have here is the jet port, which is very good. The worst is the UDO 2018, where they were put in at one time and slowly but surely they get fixed through the planning board to the town council, and they're getting fixed. The back door thing, that's new to me. I haven't been cut in on no backdoor deals. The consent agenda serves a purpose. You can't openly negotiate a land purchase. There is no way to do it. You can't put 8,396 people trying to help bargain on that. The consent agenda, the 2 years I've been there, has almost always been, because of legal issues that can't be discussed till they're resolved. People do sue the town and that kind of thing. That is a very bad misnomer to say these backdoor deals or something going on in the consent agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, very much. That ends the list of questions submitted to the League of Women Voters for tonight's mayoral forum. But before we leave, we're going to give each one of you 1 minute to add any thought or thoughts that you think are important about your campaign that we may not have talked about tonight that you want to talk about. So you have 1 minute closing statement, something important about your campaign, something you want to talk about that I didn't get the chance to ask you about tonight. And Mr. Ken Thomas, I'm going to ask you to go first. 60 seconds, sir.
The best thing going is the budget and how we've improved it and how we're economically better. We did not discuss how about the engineers and how we're going to fix our stormwater problems that we've done. We haven't discussed the truth. We haven't called out Facebook for its story tales. I've been to every meeting, not once, since 2001 has the town council in Oak Island voted for an assessment. That is not true. They voted for a map, and the map resembles 2001, and all this talk about assessment and what I'm gonna do, it's never been done since 2001. That's a very bad misnomer, and people should be put to shame for saying that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. White, I'm going to ask you 1 minute. Any thought or thoughts on your campaign that we have not talked about tonight? You have 60 seconds.
Thank you. First of all, Mr. Mayor, I never use the term backdoor deals. I think in listening to the two of us tonight, you can see in many instances where we are far apart on the issues, skills and abilities, and in some instances, character. I ask you this one question, and that is, are you happy with the results of the last 2 years? But more importantly, can you imagine going through 4 more just like them. I want to make it clear that your vote, please, everyone get out and vote. When you go to the polls, I ask for your support, but you vote for the people you think that are best.
Thank you, ma'am, very much. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for our two mayoral candidates, Mr. Ken Thomas and Liz White. Both candidates, thank you very much for joining us. We appreciate you being part of this. We will be back with our town council forum starting tonight at 7 o'clock. So we're going to take about a 30-minute break. Correct, Barbara? That's where you want to work it? Are all of the candidates here? Okay. Well, we will see you soon then for town council in Oak Island. Stay with us. We'll be right back. And welcome back. I'm Jon Evans of WECT News. This is the second forum of the evening. This is for candidates running for town council here in Oak Island. We have 7 candidates with us, and they're broken up into 2 separate races on the ballot. But for this evening, we are counting them all as one group of candidates. I'm going to introduce them all to you and then explain a little bit more about how this forum will proceed. Running for the 4-year terms, the 2 open seats running for 4-year terms, we have our candidates John Bach, Charles Farley, Mark Martin, Lynn Mcdowell, and Loman Scott. And running for the unexpired term, the 2-year term, we have candidates Bill Kraft and candidates Charles McWells. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, thank you for taking the time to run for office. Thank you for taking the time to sign up. It's not an easy job, and campaigning is not easy in 2021, but we thank you for your public service. Once again, what I will do is give each of the candidates 2 minutes for an opening statement, and then each of the candidates will have 90 seconds for the response to the questions. I have done my best to randomly assign who follows who to make it so that the same candidate is not following the same candidate in every response. And then we will have 1 minute at the end for a closing statement or for the candidates to be able to bring up something that we did not talk about this evening. So we're going to go in alphabetical order for the first opening statement this evening, and we will go for candidate Mr. John Bach. Mr. Bach, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you, sir, and thank you for moderating. Thank you to the League for sponsoring this forum. 4 years ago, I began this journey, and I made 2 commitments. First, that I would be a strong and independent voice for you, for the citizens of this town. And I also committed to changing the public narrative to make it more transparent, to raise questions, to challenge assumptions, and to seek data. And anyone who has been to a town council meeting or looked at it on web knows that I have fulfilled those pledges. But tonight, we have an entirely different landscape. Multiple big-ticket problems, beach renourishment, parking, stormwater, et cetera, et cetera. What is the answer? I believe the answer is we need, first of all, to shift away from reaction and be proactive, which is to say we need a plan, an operational strategic plan that sets priorities. If we get that, we will get good policy, which is the function of this body. And if you get good policy, you get good planning. You get timelines, benchmarks, results, and success breeds success. So I think we need to take seriously these challenges, and we need to turn them into opportunities through planning and through hard work. And my childhood hero is JFK, and he said, "I'm an idealist without illusion, and I'll put myself in that category. I believe we can solve these problems, but our leadership will have to be persistent and intentional. No time allowed to drift. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Next, for his opening statement, 2 minutes, Mr. Bill Kraft. Mr. Kraft, 2 minutes, sir, for your opening statement.
Thank you, sir. My wife and I moved to Oak Island in 2014. We came from the Raleigh area. I fell in love with this little island that we call paradise. I love living here. But Oak Island has been discovered. We are no longer a sleepy little fishing town. And with growth comes change, and with change comes difficult decisions. Too many times we've kicked the can down the road and not made those difficult decisions. We need solutions. As a town council member, I want to be part of the solution, not part of the problem. Let me tell you about Bill Kraft. Since I've lived here, I've gone to just about every town council meeting. I get involved. I'm the chairman of the Parks and Rec Advisory Board. I get involved. A couple weeks from now, Saturday and Sunday, I will be helping facilitate the pickleball tournament. I get involved. I'm hands-on. I graduated from law school at the University of Louisville, practiced law. People would come to my office with all types of problems. I would navigate through from the beginning to the end, come out with the best solution for them. I want to do the same thing for Oak Island. I negotiated $100 million international contracts. I would sit in boardrooms and argue about terms and conditions that I knew my side could comply with. I'll do the same for Oak Island. Sand assessment, $40 million, $142 million, whatever the number is, we cannot put that on the back of the taxpayers. I don't think anybody in their right mind now thinks it's a good idea to put that on the back of the taxpayers. However, we do have a sand erosion problem in Oak Island. We need to address that, and we need to address it yesterday. There's solutions that need to be made, and somebody needs to make some decisions. I'm going to ask you to do one thing. Give Bill Kraft a chance. I'm running for a 2-year term. I'm asking you to believe in me. Let me show you what I can do. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, for his opening statement this evening, we have candidate Charles Farley. Mr. Farley, you have 2 minutes, sir.
Thank you. Good evening, folks. I have a brother who lives out in Colorado. He calls me once every blue moon, and we talk. And the last time I spoke to him, I'm speaking to him on the phone, long distance, and he's saying, "You like it? I hear you're out at the beach." I said, "Yeah, I'm living out at the beach. Been here for a while. Love it." "Is it expensive?" I said, "Well, let me tell you what I got to buy." "No, go ahead." "I got to buy sand." He says, "Say what? You live at the beach and you got to buy sand?" I said, "Yup, apparently there isn't enough of it. They want us to buy and put extra sand on the beach. There is a sand tax." He says, "Oh my God, that is just nuts." I said, "Well, you haven't heard everything yet. We got a rain tax." "What?" "Yep, we get taxed when it's rained. It's based on a formula nobody understands, a square foot of your yard and how many tiles on your roof. When it rains, we get to pay a tax. And that tax is optional, and this city council voted it in. And I don't think there's anyone in the audience that says, 'Boy, is this rain tax doing a good job with storm water.'" So, I mean, that is one of the things that we really do need to look into. I don't have enough time to get started with the parking regulations and the right-of-way controversies, but that is one of the things I would really like to address as a city council person for you. I'm running out of time here, but in my closing statement, I'll give you my 5 priorities that Liz has asked for. She doesn't need a focus group. I have them right here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Next, for his opening statement this evening, we have council candidate Mark Martin. Mr. Martin, you have 2 minutes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. And thanks to everyone here tonight live, and for those of you who watch later, I really appreciate you coming out and listening to all of us, get a chance to learn about us a little bit and what we think we can do to help the town. Just a little bit about me. Yes, my name is Mark Martin, but I want to clarify something within 10 seconds here. I am not the famous NASCAR Cup Series driver. I know y'all are excited that Mark Martin has moved here, and I appreciate your excitement, but let's get excited about other topics and what we can do. So a little bit about my background. I was born and raised in Virginia. I grew up in a very low-income family. My parents did the best they could to put food on the table and clothes on our backs. I learned very early from my mom especially, a work ethic. You work hard, you give back. Every time we had more than we needed at our house, we gave back to the community. I saw her go out at Christmas and give gifts to the needy. We put food in the food pantries, even if it was the food that we had in our pantry for next week. We always gave back. So as soon as I was able to start giving back, that's the work ethic I brought to the table. I met my college sweetheart, and we got married. We've been married for 32 years now, and I love that woman to death. Anyway, so my very first government job, or my appointment, was economic development back in Virginia. They had an opening on the board. I took the opening. We came to North Carolina. I've done a lot of work around economic development. I've done work for Parks and Recreation, planning and zoning. I was even on town council in a little town called Harrisburg, North Carolina. What I bring to you, I don't have all the answers. I have a work ethic. I will work. I will not hire consultants. I will not pay for studies. I will work for you, the taxpayer.
Thank you, sir. Next, for her opening statement this evening, we have Town Council candidate Lynn Mcdowell. Ms. Mcdowell, you have 2 minutes, ma'am.
Thank you, sir, and thank you, League, and thank you, attendees here and over the wires. This is a great opportunity for you to compare and contrast. If you think back to your English essays, having to write things like that, you see a wide variety of candidates up here, and I want to explain to you why I think I am deserving of your vote. I have a very strong business background in finance and accounting. That business background required a lot of planning and analysis and execution and follow-up and overall communication. I have become increasingly discouraged by the way the town has been run, and that's why I'm up here tonight. I think that we can do better. And using the steps that worked for me in a business career, I think can be applied certainly to the huge issues that we have been facing with the beach, with the parking, is that you have to prioritize the issues. We can't do everything all at once. We have to know what's important and what's urgent, and those are not always the same things. And then we have to look at what the alternatives are, and I would reach out to the community for assistance with that. One of the benefits of, I think we skew a little older in this community than the nationwide, but we have this wealth of experience, people that have had careers in various fields. Let's get some input from them, again, instead of having to go out for consultants and studies and things like that. Let's talk to our own people first. Analyze what the different alternatives are, and then pick one and execute. We keep going around in circles, and we have been dealing with the same issues here for years. I'd like to get some resolution to them. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, very much. Next, for his opening statement this evening, we have Town Council candidate Charles McWells. Mr. McWells, you have 2 minutes, sir.
Thank you. Hello, my name's Charles McWells. Some people call me Red. I moved to Oak Island in 1983 when our town was split into 3 different communities. And there wasn't very many paved roads back in those days. And not long after moving here, I began working for the town, and I grew to love and respect. My family has grown to love our community too. I've raised my daughters to know the responsibility of protecting the natural resources we have been blessed to enjoy. I now raise and teach my grandchildren to honor the integrity of this place we call home. My extended family also lives here and supports our town in many ways. 37 years ago, I began my career as a town employee. I watched our little community grow and grow, and I understand town operations and how we developed into today's mature community. I enjoyed contributing and making a difference in a place that needed protection and respected the environment and integrity of its growth. My role in the community didn't stop as a utility supervisor, but continued as a volunteer firefighter, EMT, search and rescue team. I have assisted in cleanup initiatives after storms and fully understand its impact. I participate in fundraising to support families, causes, and missions that better our community and strengthen my commitment to our town. My boots on the ground gives me a unique view of how I can continue to assist our residents. As a council member, I would work with council and committees already in place to help solve parking and sand and responsible growth. I will help develop new committees to better establish and support planned and unplanned structure. I would preserve the integrity of our natural resources and promote our growth on the island in a conscientious manner. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, for his opening statement this evening, we have Town Council candidate Loman Scott. Mr. Scott, you have 2 minutes, sir.
Thank you, John. And it's great to see everybody. I know so many of you here. I'm one of the incumbents, and I've served 2 years on the town council. And people have asked why I want to do it again, and it's always so much unfinished business, and that's my biggest reason. I'm married to Susan Scott. We've been married 50 years this past August. I have 2 sons, 2 granddaughters. I've got 2 dogs, 2 cats, a bird, and 2 outside feral cats that we've adopted. So we have a small farm there. And before I go any further, I've heard some rumors and some people saying that there's some discrimination here against my colleagues. And I want to quell that right away. And the reason is all this hair. I have never seen so much hair on one dais in all my life. And there seems to be some problem with that. There's enough hair up here to weave at least 6 blankets. But at any rate, I've been here, like I said, for 8 years. And have I made mistakes? You betcha. I've made some mistakes. I own them. But I have learned from every single mistake that I've ever made. I'm a retired major crimes detective with the city of Greensboro. And I think that one of our big issues here is growth. And I think growth is all encompassing, and it includes our beach. It includes what's going to happen. The Williamson track across the bridge is going to be developed probably within the next 2 years, and that's going to change the whole face of our island, and we must be prepared for that. I'm prepared to make the tough decisions, and I thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. For our first question, Mr. Martin, I'm going to ask you to respond first, if I may. Beach renourishment and the sand tax appear to be major issues facing Oak Island. Several ideas have been discussed on the best way to address it. I'd like your thoughts, sir, on the best way to address this issue. You have 90 seconds.
Thank you. So to start with, my position on sand tax number 2, and yeah, I jokingly call it sand tax number 2 because we already pay a sand tax. It's built into our property tax. So for the sand assessment, my first position is I oppose the sand assessment. We will not move forward if you elect me to town council with a sand assessment program. Everyone keeps saying that there's been no vote or there's no initiative to move forward with the sand assessment. Go back and check the special meeting notes for March 16th, 2021. That was this year, people, March 16th. Sheila Bell made the motion to move forward with option 1 of the sand assessment. The calculator is currently online today under the beach master plan on the town's website. It hasn't been taken down. Put your land value in, you will see your sand assessment going forward. So day 1, we rescind the motion from March 16th, 2021. Once we rescind that motion, we start with a clean piece of paper. And yes, there are alternatives out there for beach nourishment. It's called beach maintenance. Every town does it. We set aside enough money every year to go after the key soil erosion areas on the beachfront and build back a little at a time over a long period of time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Scott, beach renourishment and the sand tax appear to be the major issue facing Oak Island. Several issues or several ideas have been discussed. What are your thoughts on the best way to address the issue. You have 90 seconds, sir.
I'm philosophically opposed to these districts, and here's why. It seems to pit neighbor against neighbor, and I don't know of any real fair way to do it. However, I don't know of any other way. We have been struggling with this, and the only thing we did was vote to have districts in case we need them. This calculator online is just an example of how much each district could pay. There has been no vote on any percentage of money for anybody. That was absolutely a mistake. The penalty for doing nothing with our beach could turn out to be total devastation. If you go to the West End and look, and I've talked to some neighbors down there recently, they are in real trouble. The ocean's already lapping at their houses, and they have sand bagged up, and we need to do something. And that's one of the reasons that Councilman Bach and I set up the Citizens Committee for studying sand. And we got some good ideas from them. And I want to move forward. I want to study this some more and see what we can do. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. McWells, beach renourishment and the sand tax appear to be the major issue facing Oak Island. Several options have been discussed. What are your thoughts on the best way to address the issue? You have 90 seconds, sir.
Well, we all enjoy the beach. We all enjoy the sand. And I think we all should pay for part of it. It's a sore subject, but we have to do what we have to do. I think it should all be split evenly. I've been here since 1983 and seen many storms. And let me tell you something. There's been north wind storms that's done just as much damage as a hurricane. And you can put as much money as you want into this beach, and it can be gone the next day, no matter what you do. If you do just part of it, that's not going to work. You got to do the whole thing, or it's not going to work. I feel like we need to protect the resources that we have. Keep going through these committees and getting everybody's input on it and putting it all together and coming up with a plan to make it work for everybody. That's all I got.
Sir. Mr. Farley, what are your thoughts on the best way to address the beach renourishment and sand tax issue? You have 90 seconds.
It's quite simple. No amount of extra sand dumped on the beach is ever going to deter Mother Nature if she makes up her mind to really hit us hard. That is it. And my other comment is that my wife and I do walk the beach every other day from 64th Street to 79th, back and forth. This latest phenomenon, Sam and the riptides, and it's actually put some sand back on the beach. So it's not always a subtraction formula. That's my position on it.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Mcdowell, what are your thoughts on the best way to address the issue of beach renourishment and the sand tax here in Oak Island? You have 90 seconds, ma'am.
First of all, the proposal that had been discussed by council was not a sand tax. It was a sand assessment, possibly combined with a tax, and they're very different things. The assessment that has the districts, that had people pretending that they know who benefits most from the beach, is absurd, and I would be very much against that. I was also against the engineered beach from the get-go. I think it is overkill. It's not affordable for us, but I also don't think that it's the right approach. I prefer to think of it as coastal management, not just tossing more sand on the beach where the next strong wind from whatever direction is going to move it where it will. We need to work on our dunes. Now, there has been some work done, but typically we just kind of push sand, and it doesn't stay where you push it. Again, we have winds here. So rather than just looking for higher and higher dunes, I have heard that a better approach would be wider, lower dunes. They're stronger, they're more stable, they would be easier to have good, strong vegetation on that will trap the sand and keep it from being blown away. I believe it's also quite a bit cheaper than $140+ million. That said, we need some urgent attention to the west end. Our beach is not the same across the entire 10 miles, and we have to take an approach that looks section by section and does the right thing.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Bach, what are your thoughts on the best way to address the issue of beach renourishment and the sand tax in Oak Island? You have 90 seconds.
Thank you. Well, first of all, we need to acknowledge the central role that the beach plays in our lives aesthetically and economically, and we need to preserve our beach. And I'm for beach renourishment, but not at any cost. I disliked assessments in 18 when they first came up. I moved against them when they came up a second time. I agree, they are divisive. And an engineered beach, estimated by the Sand Committee, the Citizen Sand Committee, to be $137 million is unacceptable. I mean, that's on the low end. So the issue here is, per the question, where do we begin? We hit reset, and we deal with the factors that matter. What is the scale of the project that we believe as a community we can support? Is it a 10-year plan? Is it a 5-year plan, 15-year plan? And what's the cost? Do we have a state partner? Do we have a federal partner? Do we have the potential to get grants? And then we get to the thorny question. And this is a thorny question. How do we pay for it? And what is equity to one man is injustice to another? I don't profess to have that answer, but I'll commit to that conversation, because for too long we've had incremental approaches to the beach, and now we see the cost of that. We see lives in danger, we see infrastructure in danger, we see our very way of life potentially in danger.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Kraft, I ask you, sir, what are your thoughts on the best way to address the beach renourishment and sand tax issue in Oak Island? You have 90 seconds, sir.
Beach renourishment is one word, sand tax is a whole other situation. When I started campaigning 4 months ago, I yelled and screamed at the top of my lungs that a tax assessment was ludicrous and was not fair on the back of the taxpayers. Now I sit on a podium and 7 people agree with me. A sand tax means FEMA engineered beach. FEMA engineered beach is the pristine beach of beaches. We do not need that. We're not in the position to get that. We need renourishment. We haven't gone and developed a relationship with our county commissioners to ask for their help. We haven't developed a relationship with our state legislators to ask for their help. We haven't pursued some of the grants that are available, some of the grants that Houghton Beach, that Ocean Isle received. There's solutions and there's ways to have beach renourishment. There's ways to have sand erosion protection. There's ways to have sand protection. FEMA engineered beach is not a good word. We need to throw that word out. We need to protect our beaches. We need to look and see where the help is. Take a step back, as Councilman Bach said, see where the help is, find that help. Coastal Management Association. What happened if Houghton Beach, Ocean Isle, Surf City, Topsail, if all of us formed one group and we went to the legislature and said, 12 towns on the coast need help, they would listen to us a whole lot more. There's solutions, there's ways to win. We haven't figured out how to win yet. We can win.
Thank you, sir. Mr. McWells, I'm going to ask you to respond first to the next question, if I may. Based on the questions that residents submitted to the League of Women Voters prior to the forum, drainage and stormwater runoff appear to be concerning issues and problems on Oak Island. What's your perspective on the issue? And as a member of town council, how would you address those water issues of drainage and stormwater runoff? You have 90 seconds.
First of all, we do live on an island, and it's hard to drain a lot of the water, especially when you get a big amount, like 3 or 4 inches in a couple hours. That's a lot of water, and it's not going to go too many places where we can't just dump it in the ocean or dump it in the waterway. It causes problems. It causes bacteria and everything like that. My understanding is that the town is in process of hiring somebody for the stormwater, somebody that's supposed to be educated in the stormwater. And I myself, I worked in stormwater whenever I worked for the town. I know some of the areas that are bad, and we just got to work on it. And it's a continuing thing, just like the beach. It's always gonna be some type of erosion from the water runoff. We can't, like I said, we live on a beach. The water can't go nowhere except for the waterways and the ocean, and we can't have that because that's an environmental issue. So I think we should let the town staff try to get their man or woman into place and start from there.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Kraft, what is your perspective on the issues of drainage and stormwater runoff? And as a member of town council, how would you address these water issues?
We've had stormwater runoff in this town before I ever got here. It's always been here, and it seems like every election people want to talk about it. And then once the election's over, they don't do anything about it. The Division of Environmental Quality in Raleigh writes the manual on stormwater runoff. That's the experts. We don't have to hire engineering firms, pay them $100,000 every time we have a dilemma. The state has a Division of Environmental Quality that writes the manual that will tell us first that 25 years ago, when we started making these mistakes, we put in polystyrene pipes instead of gravel and sand. That's one of our biggest problems. We don't clean out our ditches. There's nowhere for the stormwater to run off. That's another one of our problems. We've got mistakes just like the large houses on the ocean, just like the stormwater runoff, that are mistakes of 20 and 25 years ago, and now we're trying to figure out what to do about them. It takes some really good thinking as to what to do about them. Division of Environmental Quality would come help us. I don't want to talk about the mistakes of the past all the time and dwell on that. I want to tell you that going forward, there's answers. Contact the right agencies. North Carolina State will send a couple interns down here to do a study for 2 or 3 months at no cost. There's answers. We don't have to go broke every time we have a dilemma trying to figure something out. Stormwater runoff needs to be addressed, and it needed to be addressed 20 years ago, 15 years ago, 8 years ago. It doesn't need to be addressed 3 months before an election. Hark, we're going to hire an engineering firm now, 3 months before an election. No.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Bach, what is your perspective on the issues of drainage and stormwater runoff? And as a member of town council, how would you address these water questions? You have 90 seconds.
Thank you. Well, clearly, this is going to be a systemic problem living on an island. I would suggest that the upsurge in real estate and the build-out of the island is exacerbating this problem. And we need to think clearly about managing growth. And we need to think about how we deal with problems that exist today and how they can be alleviated 4 or 5 years from now. We are not going to snap our fingers and end stormwater. We're just not. And as has been suggested, this has been a problem for a long time. I'll go back to my opening statement. We need a plan. We need a plan that has clear priorities in it. We need a plan that earmarks dollars to do the job, to fix the problem. So I disagree with my colleague about Dixon Engineering, because there are some things that we don't have the local capacity to do well. And one of them is pumping water up the island. But short of that, yeah, we need to figure out how we're going to address stormwater as a chronic, long-term problem, and how do we get to the solution? And that first step is prioritize it. Make it a priority for council in every budget and deal with it. And at the very least, mitigate it, if not eliminate it. We probably won't be able to eliminate it, per the gentleman's comment, but we can surely mitigate it.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Scott, what is your perspective on the issues of drainage and stormwater runoff? And as a member of town council, how would you address these water issues?
In 1978, when my family bought the house that I'm still in now, we had some problems with standing water, and basically it was just pumped back into the ocean, and nobody really thought much of it at that time. We can't do that anymore, and we can't hire a couple of interns to come in here and work the problem out. There's too many rules, regulations, CAMA, federal. It takes an engineering firm to do this. We have hired an engineer, and the first project is probably going to be down near Croyle Street, where water stands just about every time it rains. The process of doing this is extremely complicated. and the water has to go somewhere, and that requires building holding tanks and taking those holding tanks and putting them in the sand where the water can run in there. And it does take an engineering firm, and we're working on that. And we need to work on it further, but it's, as I said, a very expensive proposition. Probably to do that one spot's going to be over $300,000. And there's lots of places on the island that need the same thing.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Farley, what is your perspective on the issues of stormwater runoff and drainage? And as a member of town council, how would you address these issues? You have 90 seconds, sir.
Thank you. That's one of my favorite subjects, having worked for many years as a soil and water supervisor in Pitt County, producing best management practices and seeing that stormwater is properly taken care of. I agree almost 100% with my colleague to the right, and I disagree almost 90% to the one to his right. But having said that, and in deference to Scotty there, it's not rocket science. Water seeks its own level and lower. When my wife and I bought our first house here on 75th Street, if anyone lives on 75th Street, anytime it rained, any amount, the street was basically impassable. That's when we bought our first Jeep. It's still like that, folks. These types of things need to be addressed. This is where it's bad. Let's go there and do something. It's not that hard. I would say, as a city councilman, I'd like to go there. Let's find where the old storm drains are. Where are the ditches? And these rules that make you do backflips with the water, it's still rainwater. It's not a pollutant.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Mcdowell, what is your perspective on the issues of drainage and stormwater runoff? And as a member of town council, how would you address the water issues? You have 90 seconds, ma'am.
We are dealing with years and years and years of poor decisions, and council might have an opportunity to take some steps to correct those. We did not have any standard about impervious surface on new houses until relatively recently. That was a big problem. We've got houses with way too much covered area. That could be readdressed. The amount of fill that's allowed on lots that are being developed, again, that was recently reduced, but that still creates an issue. You have a house going in next to you that brings in fill higher than your yard legally, but guess where the water's going to go? It's going to end up in your yard. So those are some things that council might be able to deal with. Another concern is wetlands. We still do have significant amount of wetlands on the island. Unfortunately, there are ways to take those wetlands and get rid of the wet. And this is also legal. You can pay money and have wetlands created someplace else. Not on Oak Island, someplace else. That's not a great solution either. We do have some issues with maintaining our ditches. One thing I'd also like to see is getting the state involved in taking care of Beach Road. That is a state road. They have done work on Oak Island Drive and improved that considerably. I think they should also be charged with working on Beach Road.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Martin, what is your perspective on the issues of drainage and stormwater runoff? And as a member of council, how would you address them? You have 90 seconds.
Thank you. First, I'd like to say we all get frustrated. We see on our water bill this thing called stormwater fees, right? Or the amount you pay on your water bill. And then we drive around and we see standing water everywhere. Everybody wants something to happen overnight, but to the comments of several people, it takes time. Now, whether or not that's, it took us a long time to hire an engineer, or we had to do another study, or it's been taking us time to work, you're going to hear people who've been here for 4 years, 8 years, longer than that, keep telling you that we need a plan. And I can do a plan. I can bring you a logistics plan or an operational plan. I can do all this planning. Well, my question is, you've had money, because we've been paying the stormwater fee on our water bills. You've had time. Where is the plan? Because my wife and I had a drainage problem in the front of our property. It took numerous phone calls to get anyone to come even look. And they said, oh yeah, we'll be cleaning the ditch. Well, when? Oh, that's on our schedule. It took months before they cleaned the ditch. And we're currently struggling with a backfill issue now on our property. So we personally have stormwater issues on our property, and I know everyone can point to a street or a property here. It takes time, but we need action, no more planning.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Mcdowell, I'm going to ask you to respond first to the next question, ma'am, if I may. Communication is an important part of running a local government. What do you consider to be your best communication skills? How would you use them in working with other members of council and the town departments in Oak Island?
I think my strongest communication skill is trying to be very clear about what I'm saying. And part of that comes from being prepared, from studying the issue upside down and backwards, and then talking about it with people at whatever level is required. I actually started out life as a junior high school teacher and had to learn how to talk to that group, and then learn how to talk to adults in my business career. So I've kind of spanned that gamut. And I think you just have to know how to address the appropriate audience. I try to be very open. I try to be very organized. And that, I think, is also very helpful in communication if you know what you're going to say, and then you can get through it cleanly. I try to be very respectful of whoever I'm communicating with. I know that ideas will differ, and I hope to get communications back at me, and that we can come to some kind of meeting of the minds if there's an issue. So again, openness, clarity, and repetition.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Kraft, what do you consider to be your best communication skills, and how would you use them in working with the other members of council and the town departments in Oak Island? 90 seconds, sir.
Anyone can get from point A to point B if there's no barbed wire fences, no potholes. I've always prided myself on being able to get from point A to point B to point Z if I had to. Regardless of what is out there, I will navigate that and I will get it done. Negotiating and talking and working with other people, listen, talk, compare notes. One thing that I think needs to be done more so on the town council is do the research, do the due diligence. So many times decisions are made before people know what the facts are. I want to do the research, talk to the people that know more than I do on that particular subject, bring it back and say, what about this? What about that? Will this work? Will that work? How come we can't do this? Don't stop until you finally accomplish what you went out to do. Negotiate it, talk it, resolve it, find a solution, find a way to win. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Farley, what do you consider to be your best communication skills? How would you use them in working with other members of council and the town departments in Oak Island?
My best skills are listening and determining what the majority is really asking for, and then working with other council members to build consensus and caucus with them and make sure when we go ahead to do something, we have the votes. I think it's an affront when one member of the council brings something up and everyone else just looks the other way. That's just pathetic. I do have a lot of board experience and committee experience, and it's this way this board's been running is almost dysfunctional. It's sad to say. Anyway, we need to have a board that looks for ways to do things, not to always just search for repeat the tired platitudes of, we've tried that and this didn't work, and the staff always seems to have all these multiple reasons why nothing can be done. And no, that doesn't fly with me. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McWells, what do you consider to be your best communication skill, and how would you use them in working with other members of council and the town departments in Oak Island? 90 seconds, sir.
Well, I feel that listening to people on how they feel about something is the most important thing. And if you sit there and you take in all the information, get more information from different committees, town staff, work with the people, don't criticize what somebody might say to you about a certain way to take care of something. Listen to them. Let them talk that out. Let them get it all out before you make a decision on how you should deal with it. That's pretty much all I need to do right there. I mean, blaming people, and you need to create groups and committees and get everybody together and get a consensus. And I think that's the main way of doing things. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Bach, what do you consider to be your best communication skills? How would you use them in working with other members of town council and the departments here in Oak Island?
Thank you. Well, as a lifelong educator and school executive for 25 years, I have an appreciation for the clarity of the message. If you are communicating, you need to be crystalline about what it is you're trying to communicate with an audience. I think you also learn very quickly that there is a wide diversity of opinion. You cannot assume the audience is monolithic. So you need to be able to nuance the communication. And obviously, the feedback loop going the other way is equally important. You need to learn how to listen and to appreciate differences of opinion, to appreciate other perspectives. And I think my other gift is I'm able to frame arguments. I have an analytical skill. I can present it in a way that the audience understands the issues, the challenges, and they may not agree with my perspective, but they at least understand the analytical approach to this is the problem, here are the options, and this is why this option would be best. I do want to say that 4 years ago, I might have made some of the same criticisms about council. I don't see council as dysfunctional. I think that's an overstatement. It is remarkably civil, given other bodies that we've watched colliding. And there is far more discussion than there ever has been. And someone mentioned earlier, I see it.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Martin, what do you consider to be your best communication skills? How would you use them in working with other members of council and the town departments here in Oak Island? 90 seconds, sir.
Yeah, thank you. So everyone seems to be tuned into the buzzword, listen. That's obviously a key success factor when you're communicating. But I haven't heard people talk about the word collaboration and relationships. I believe the key to effective communication is building relationships collaboratively across not just council, but all the staff members as well. And not just local staff members, but reaching out to resources at the county level, and yes, at the state level as well. You have to build relationships by listening, but you build relationships by being collaborative. It's not forming the right argument that you can stand behind to beat someone down. It's not over-talking them when you're trying to have a conversation with them. I've been reaching out to several people, and all they want to do is try to over-talk me and tell me what I can't do. So communication is key when it's a collaborative environment. So we work toward building relationships collaboratively where the outcome is favorable for the community, not for what town council wants, not even for what town staff wants. It's what the community needs in order to have quality of life here.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Scott, what do you consider to be your best communication skills? How would you use them in working with other members of council and the town departments here in Oak Island, sir?
I've been here on the council for 8 years, almost 96 different council meetings. And I always reach out to my colleagues, and I always call them and speak with them and find out what their ideas are on a specific agenda item. I work a lot behind the scenes, and I communicate a lot with my colleagues. I think that for the most part, we all like each other on the council. I don't know of any dysfunction or anything such as that, or backdoor deals. And specifically, tell me about them and I'll listen. But just to throw them out there, it's a little disheartening. You also have to look at unintended consequences of different decisions and speak with your colleagues. And you can learn a lot by listening. I listen and I work behind the scenes. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Kraft, I'm going to ask you to respond first to the next question, sir, if I may. I got my stopwatch working here. Okay. What is your current impression regarding the appearance of the commercial district in Oak Island? And if improvements are needed, what role do you think town council should take? 90 seconds, sir.
I would like to see Oak Island have more of a beach feel. When you drive through town, I would like to see the red, blue, green buildings. I would not like to see the brick storefronts and the sidings at the store. That goes back to your planning department, though. If you go to your planning committee and tell them what you want, how much authority do they have to push it through? It seems like the hierarchy dictates what each committee gets to do. I would like to see the town have more of a beach look to it, but you need to have planning on that. You can't just, each time a company comes in, say, no, you can't do it because we looked at some of your earlier buildings. We need to have something set up going forward, a 5 or 10 year plan. This is what we want. This is what we want it to look like 2 years from now, 5 years from now, 8 years from now, and start addressing that stuff. That old adage, we need to plan our work and work our plan. Right now, it just seems whenever a company wants to come, unlike Charlotte, come on in, whatever you bring, that's fine with us. Charlotte's going gangbusters on prettying up their downtown area. We're not. We need to address that.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Martin, what is your current impression regarding the appearance of the commercial district? And if improvements are needed, what role should the town council take, sir? 90 seconds.
Yeah, love this question. Great question for tonight. One of the things I worked on in Harrisburg, North Carolina, was a downtown beautification project, and it was amazing. We were able to restore sidewalks, build new sidewalks, extend sidewalks. We put in LED pedestrian crosswalks to protect citizens and to protect pedestrians and bicyclists to cross main highways. We revitalized building frontages to meet the aesthetics of that community. And we got all of that done in less than 4 years, and with a budget that was paid for out of fees that we were collecting, not from taxpayers at all. So I think for Oak Island, I've talked to some of the business owners in our downtown district. Some of them are very upset that the buildings have been repainted gray and black. To Bill's point, is that a beach community? I talked to another business owner who said, why can't my building be bright blue or green, right? You drive through other small beach communities and they want their businesses to be attractive to visitors and locals, right? One of the things that my wife and I love about some of the restaurants here is more of a Caribbean vibe or sometimes a Key West vibe, right? Outdoor, dining and drinks and music and colorful displays and artifacts hanging on the wall. That's what needs to come to downtown Oak Island.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Scott, what is your current impression regarding the appearance of the commercial district? And if improvements are needed, what role should the council take?
Well, certainly we can always make our downtown look better. And I think that the council can look at possibly getting some low-interest loans and offering those to the businesses and have them fix up and spruce up. Actually, overall, I'm pretty happy with living here. I knew what I was getting into when I moved here, and it's a quaint town. It's back when it was built, there weren't the restrictions, and people did a lot of things that they wanted to. Parking, I think we need some sidewalks, and I think that we can make our downtown look better.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Bach, what is your current impression regarding the appearance of the commercial district? And if improvements are needed, what role should the town council take, sir?
It's interesting. 4 years ago, my wife and I conducted what is, I believe, one of the largest surveys ever done for the Land Use Committee. Almost 4,000 residents and visitors and property owners. And number 3 ranked issue was improving the appearance of downtown. So this is another item that's languished. I would say that we want to balance small-time town charm and beachy with an efficient downtown that's walkable. How about safe with crosswalks, sidewalks? These are key issues that are not necessarily aesthetic, but facilitate an aesthetic downtown where people go, wow, this is a really interesting town. It has character. And I will say that for 2 years, I tried to pass through council the need to hire an economic development officer. So had Mr. Martin been available, I would have called him, because I think that's exactly what we need. Not just for downtown, but to identify grants, to identify partners for beach renourishment, to lobby, to build a coastal alliance with other towns. I mean, there's an enormous amount of things, and that has not been a successful effort. But that is the ultimate answer. That, and per the collaboration theme, working with the business community, working with the chamber, and bringing to bear all the resources that we can to
Thank you,
create
sir.
a downtown we like.
Thank you, sir. Mr. McWells, what is your current impression with the appearance of the downtown commercial district? And if improvements are needed, what role should the town council take? 90 seconds, sir.
Well, I think safety should be the main concern down there, and through the whole whole section, that crosswalks should be better than what they are right now. They're actually non-existent. And maybe some lights to stop traffic so pedestrians can get through. Sidewalks definitely need to be improved. As far as aesthetics, I think that should be up to the property owners. I'm sorry, I don't think government should be telling people how they should paint or how they should look. And up to a certain point, I mean, if it's not dangerous to somebody, they shouldn't be telling somebody how to paint their building. And I think the most important thing is safety, because there's a lot of people down there and they're crossing in the middle of the roads and not at the light, and we need to address that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Farley, what is your current impression of the commercial downtown district in Oak Island? And if improvements are needed, what role should the town council take, sir?
I think the fundamental question there is, where is it? And where perhaps should it be? I believe it should be developed around Middleton Park and Town Hall. That is where development should be encouraged around that area. We got a good start with the Publix, but I mean, that should be the part of the city, if you will, where you have sidewalks on both sides and they put in a stoplight for Publix. I think that's the area we really need to concentrate on and ask questions like, well, what's going to be built in that big lot where the mayor has got a huge sign? You know, these are questions that council should be asking. But yeah, a downtown would be nice to walk around at night and have an old sort of charm to it. And that's just my feelings on the matter. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Mcdowell, what is your current impression regarding the appearance of the commercial district? And if improvements are needed, what role should the town council take? Ma'am, 90 seconds.
I would call the appearance varied. We run the gamut on the small businesses that we have, and many of them have been there for a long, long time and are very constrained in what they can do. One of the issues that I see is parking. I don't find it terribly attractive to have parking in front of all the shops as you go down over to the eastern part of the town. But that's where the buildings are, that's where they had to put the parking. It is a big safety issue down in that area, not just for pedestrians, but this should be a bicycles paradise on this island. there are so many errands that people run on a daily basis. I walk when I can, I bike when I can, but it's terrifying on this island. So we can talk about sidewalks and crosswalks and lights, and yes, those are all important. But I would also like to see a bikeable town center. The comprehensive plan that was, I believe, adopted in 2017 had this beautiful chapter on what the downtown should look like. It's on the town website. You might get a laugh by looking at it. And it was this gorgeous thing with, grassy medians and trees and the parking behind the shops. And it's beautiful, but that's not something that we can do here. But we should be able to make incremental progress, and that is something that council and the planning board would be involved with.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Farley, I'm going to ask you to respond first to the next question, if I may, sir. The backdrop of this question is, questions have been raised about the condition and capacity of Oak Island's parks and recreational facilities with the growing population. In 2019, the Parks and Rec Department developed a master plan for improvements, but there are questions about the implementation of the plan. So the question in the long term here is, what would be your vision for improving these facilities, parks and rec facilities in Oak Island?
That is a vision that I do not have, and that is a vision that if there is an existing plan by those who have looked into it, then it should move forward, but not just to get something done right away. We are largely senior citizens here, so the activities should and would be focused around what appeals to us. But again, I'm not an expert in these matters. I would defer to my councilmate here who has experience in that matter. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Mcdowell, as a member of town council, what would be your vision for improving the parks and recreational facilities in Oak Island? 90 seconds, ma'am.
First, I would like to see the plan that was developed publicized. I had heard that it exists, but I'm not sure that it is really been discussed in the town. I honestly don't know what's in it, and so that's on me. The facilities that we do have tend to be somewhat aged and in need of some repair work. I know there is currently some plan and some budget money for doing a little bit of work at the Recreation Center, certainly not the total that's needed. I talked with David Kelly, the town manager, about that a little bit, and he said, well, they looked at whether they could move some walls in that building and, reconfigure it. Well, if you've been in that building, it's like, I think it's cinder block. You don't move those walls. So we're constrained in what we can do within that footprint. There is currently a plan for replacing the skate park at a fairly high price, although I have seen another town that's got plans that are even more expensive, so that was a little bit reassuring. And I do understand that with the youth of the town, they do need things to do. I looked up the statistic. We have, I believe, 9% of our population is under 18, and that was a little bit of a surprise to me. So we do need facilities that cover the whole age gamut, and somehow to find some money to do a little bit more work at the rec center.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Bach, what would be your vision for improving Oak Island's parks and recreational facilities? 90 seconds.
Thank you. Well, first and foremost, I want to underscore the importance of having a recreation center. It really is a community center. And from my perspective, it should be multi-generational. It should serve all of the citizens. It should have the widest variety of offerings, both programmatic, athletic, educational. It is well used and well worn. And yes, there is a recreation recommendation from the previous director, and it has not received a full hearing, in part because there is a very difficult choice to be made here to continue to pour money into an aging building, which has major structural and system issues, or to build an entirely new rec center, which would have expanded programming and obviously would be modern and attractive. Coupled with that, if you want to couple recreational issues in the town, is the dilemma about the skate park and rebuilding it. And so we have a lot of recreation issues, They just have not risen to the top of the priority list, and that's one of the things that council next is going to have to do. How important is the recreational facility, recreational opportunities? Where do we prioritize it, and who pays for it? And it's the same question. We've allowed this to drift, and now we have a crisis.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Kraft, what would be your vision for improving the town's parks and recreational facilities?
The Parks and Recreation Department is the mainstay of our town. Little kids go to the splash pad, you hear all the fun going there, the pirate ship, all the fun going there. We have almost 30 parks in Oak Island. That's amazing. Nobody can count them all. We have, I went down to the Parks and Rec Department today and introduced myself to the new director, Heather, and we got out the list, and she brought up 26 parks that the Parks and Rec Department is over. That should be our first priority. There was $75,000 put in the budget for the Parks and Rec Department. That might fix a couple of broken toilets. That's an old archaic building. That building needs to be replaced. For 5 or 6 years, ever since I've been on the Parks and Rec board, they've been saying, we're going to get you a new rec center. We're going to get you a new rec center. Rebecca Squires was probably the best thing this town had. Rebecca Squires saw the budget. 1 week later, she turned in her resignation. I'm not speaking for her, but that happened. That's gospel. $75,000 put in the budget for the rec center, $300,000 set aside for a skate park. Priorities. Constantly kicking it down the road for the rec center. We'll deal with you later. We'll deal with you later. We need the rec center and the Parks and Rec to move up higher on the priority list. We haven't treated them right. That's the mainstay of this town.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Martin, what would be your vision for improving the town's parks and recreational facilities?
We're short-sighted if we assume that the only population who's looking at parks and recreation on the island is our senior citizens. We have generations of people living here. How do I know? Because those kids play in my front yard every afternoon after school on their skateboards and on their bicycles. I'm fine with that, but they need other activities. They need a place where they can have fun and build skills. The entire Oak Island community is a parks and recreation. As my colleague Bill pointed out, we have 26 parks. I think the whole island is a park, from the beach to the wooded area, to our recreation facility, to nature trails, to preservation centers. The whole island is a park. And to Bill's point, to set aside $75,000 for a Parks and Rec center that needs to be replaced, we should break ground tomorrow on a new Parks and Rec facility. The town will sit here and brag that they just paid off this building. Look at this building. This building is now paid for. That monthly payment that was paying for this building, do you think it could build a Parks and Rec facility starting tomorrow? Yes, it can. So we need to stop talking and start taking action. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Scott, what would be your vision for improving the town's parks and recreational facilities? 90 seconds.
I've been the council liaison to the Parks and Rec Department for the last 6 years. We need a new Parks and Rec building. There's no question about that. We did allocate $75,000, and that was for equipment, new equipment, and repairs of existing equipment. Another $300,000 for the skate park, which I hope FEMA is going to pay for some of that. You know, everything comes at a cost, and Mr. Martin is right. We are going to have some extra money after this council voted to pay off the capital debt, and we worked hard to do that, and it was paid off years early. And that money could be spent for that. I agree, we do need it, and I'd like to see it.
Thank you, sir. Mr. McWells, what is your vision for improving the town's parks and recreational facilities? 90 seconds.
I feel like a skate park's important. The recreation center is important. But everything, like Loman said, comes at a cost. If we're gonna complain about money, then I guess it won't get done. But if we're gonna go ahead and move forward, look for grants. I'm sure Rebecca, she was good at doing stuff like that, and getting some grants and maybe going forward with talking about replacing the recreation building. But I really think it's important that we take care of everybody. We've done the park, the Middleton Park down there, built nice facilities down there. They've done a lot of good things, but the next thing should be the recreation building and a skate park.
Thank you, sir. Before I move on, Barbara, do we have to be done by 8 or can we go past 8 o'clock? I've got one more question and a closing statement. I want to know if I can go past 8 o'clock.
I think we can.
Okay, all right.
Early.
Okay, I just want to make sure. I didn't want an alarm to sound or something if we were going too long.
My camera about that one.
The doors
Okay.
start closing.
Mr. Scott, I'm going to ask you to respond first to the next question, sir, if I may. A number of questions submitted to the League for this forum were about the condition of the roads, construction of crosswalks, and traffic in Oak Island. What do you consider to be the major issue for the town regarding roads, crosswalks, and traffic? 90 seconds.
I don't know that we can do a lot with the traffic. People are going to come and they're going to be here. Certain times of the year, it's absolutely maddening. We have appropriated money. We've saved our Powell bill money that comes from the state. And we're in the process of spending $1.6 million to start on the roads. It's going to take approximately 3 years to get them all done. And we hope that we can do it in 3 years.
Thank you, sir. Mr. McWells, what do you consider to be the major issue for the town council regarding roads, construction of crosswalks, and traffic in Oak Island?
Well, as Loman said, I don't think traffic's gonna be any improvement in it as long as we keep on building. We got a lot of people coming down for vacations and a lot more people living here on a weekend basis. As far as maybe we could do improvement to Yacht Drive, put a bicycle path down there, pedestrian path down there. I know we got problem with FEMA regulations and stuff like that as far as building that road wider, but I feel like that could alleviate some of the traffic problems and make it safer for people to walk and bike down on Yacht Drive because there's a lot of people down there. And that's all I got.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Mcdowell, what do you consider to be the major issue for town council regarding roads, construction of crosswalks, and traffic in Oak Island, ma'am?
Well, the roads issue is, yes, there is a plan for repaving the roads, largely using Powell bill funds. That doesn't necessarily address some of the road condition issues that were a result from the sewer implementation. All the dips in the road, we can't use Powell bill funds for that, so we have to find other sources of funding to do that work. Council, I think, could proceed with some work on crosswalks, and I actually think there is a plan in place to do some down near the Publix, along with some sidewalks. And more crosswalks, more traffic lights, I would welcome. I know that, it's difficult for traffic, but if you're here in the peak of summer, I am just amazed that there are not more pedestrian accidents, because trying to get across Oak Island Drive without traffic lights is harrowing. My only suggestion for dealing with traffic is that perhaps as part of the overall parking solution that I think will be addressed again, try to get some more centralized or satellite parking areas, because then you wouldn't have to be driving you know, 2/3 of the way down the island to find your little beach parking spot, and that could help reduce the flow. A lot of these are out of council's control because we do have the state roads, our busiest roads are state roads, and I know we have to deal with some regulations on that.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Martin, what do you consider to be the major issue for town council regarding roads, construction of crosswalks, and traffic in Oak Island?
Sure. So just quickly, for those of you who don't realize, when they say the POW bill fund, it's gas tax, right? Oak Island gets a portion of the gas tax that you pay every time you put gas in your car from the state of North Carolina. So that's what you use to do road repair, road maintenance, things like that. As far as crosswalks go, we successfully installed pedestrian crosswalks in Harrisburg in strategic locations, and I would propose we do the same here. There are some major cut-throughs, as people are referring to, where pedestrians are trying to access the beachfront. If you install those state-approved, and the state will help you. You don't have to burden the whole cost yourself. The state will come in and help because Oak Island Drive is theirs, right? So they will come in and help install those pedestrian crosswalks. And when those lights are lit and there's a pedestrian in the crosswalk and you drive through it, guess what? You are in violation of state law. So now let's talk about traffic. We don't really have a traffic problem. We have an enforcement problem. We do not enforce traffic violations, golf cart violations, any violation. I think visitors flock here because of our low rental rates, because of our beautiful community and the people who live here. We're all nice people and we treat these people with open arms, but they can get away with anything. I have yet to see anyone pulled over for any violation, whether it's speeding or driving through a red light or a golf cart violation.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Farley, what do you consider to be the major issue for town council regarding condition of roads, construction of crosswalks, and traffic in Oak Island? 90 seconds, sir.
I'm glad you asked that because my closing statement, where I give my 5 big things my focus group has, that I was going to present to Liz, number 2 is exactly that. Subdivision streets with direct beach access need badly clearly marked pedestrian crosswalks. I have talking to vacationers, people who are here for a week or a month, who've stayed other places, and they say it's absolutely outrageous to try to get to the beach. You got to just wait until some nice local flashes his lights and allows you to scurry across. There is not one single crosswalk. A good example of a bad example is 79th Street. The sidewalk abruptly stops on one side, continues on the other, and there is no state-approved crosswalk. Duh! Anyway, that is my number 2 thing. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Kraft, what do you consider to be the major issue for town council regarding roads, construction of crosswalks, and traffic in Oak Island, sir?
Major issues are coming. Once the Pine Forest development gets developed, once the Williamson tract gets developed, we're going to double in size. So if you think traffic's bad now, give it another 5 or 10 years. Crosswalks. All we have to do is ask the Department of Transportation in Raleigh to give us permit us to have those crosswalks. As Mr. Martin has said a couple of times, communication. Ask for them. And doggone it, I had written down on my notes, enforce our laws. He beat me to it. 13-year-old kids, 14-year-old kids riding around on golf carts. Nobody gives them a ticket. People parking in our decal spots. Nobody gives them a ticket. Enforce the laws that we have. We have some good laws. 40 seconds, that's good. I can do this. Oak Island Drive is maintained by the state. You drive down Oak Island Drive, it is smooth, it is nice. You drive down Holly Street, you drive down Live Oak, they're bumpy. Pelican Drive is like going to the state fair on a roller coaster. Those streets are maintained by the city. The Oak Island Drive is maintained by the state. They have better specifications for what they require when you put down the new paving on Oak Island Drive. We need better specifications on our side streets. We need to do a better job on what we're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Bach, What do you consider to be the major issue for town council regarding roads, construction of crosswalks, and traffic in Oak Island?
Well, certainly in order of priority, crosswalks. I share the alarm that just about everyone on this panel has about pedestrians crossing Oak Island Drive. And we have petitioned for years to build sidewalks, and we're finally doing it. We need to get more cooperation from NCDOT. It's not that simple. They have not actually been dying to come down here and put crosswalks in, but I think we need to make a stronger case. As for the roads, the sewer cuts are abysmal. I mean, it's like being on a ski slope. But that's a sin of the past that we're continuing to pay for, and it's going to take time to fix that. As for traffic, I think my colleague, Mr. Kraft, is absolutely right. With the mainland about to come online, not just Pine Forest, but the Williamson tract behind it, 8,000 potential new units. The traffic density issue is going to be a major problem if we don't have a growth management plan. And we don't have one right now. We need one. So all three in that order.
Thank you, sir. That ends the list of questions submitted to the League of Women Voters, but before we leave, we're going to give each one of our candidates the opportunity to address any issues that were not brought up tonight, to talk about the issues that are important in their campaign, and to make some type of a closing statement. So we will go for our first closing statement this evening to Council Candidate Mark Martin. Mr. Martin, you have 60 seconds, sir.
First, I want to apologize for getting a little tender-hearted in my first 2 minutes. When I talk about family and my wife, it really touches me. They're very close to me and very important. But my work ethic, I hope you heard loud and clear that if you elect me to town council, I will get to work. I'm not going to generate plans or hire consultants to do studies. I'm going to roll up my sleeves and do the homework myself. I will listen to the community. I've been listening to the community. I'm surprised we didn't have a question about paid parking. I was ready to go on paid parking. Yes, there is a plan, because who pays for parking today? I do. Does anybody else pay for parking? Does anybody else here pay for parking? Not a single person. Us, we pay for parking. Is that not ridiculous? Moving on. You know where I stand on sand. No additional sand tax. Call it an assessment. Call it whatever you want. The answer is no. We will rescind that motion.
Okay,
Parks
sir.
and Rec is key.
Thank you. Just going by the rules, sir, I'm sorry.
I know, sir,
Next, for his closing statement this evening, we will go with Town Council candidate, Mr. Loman Scott. Mr. Scott, 60 seconds, sir.
Thank you, John, and nicely done tonight. I have not heard anybody mention three things. One is our land use plan. The other is our unified development ordinance. And mostly, our height restriction. I will make this promise. I will never, ever vote to do away with our height restriction on this island. I think it's one of the things that holds us together and makes us a community and makes us a nice, friendly town. So with that being said, I thank you. I look forward for you to vote for me, and thanks very much.
Thank you, sir. Next, for his 1-minute closing statement, Council candidate Charles McWells. Mr. McWells.
As I previously stated, I've been here for a long time. It's a great community. I'm retired, and I'm going to work hard as a council member to do the right thing and keep costs down, because, like I said, I'm retired. I can't afford it either, but we're going to do this together, and I think we can. We just need to work it out. We got to remember that we've been in a bad situation the last couple of years with the pandemic, and things haven't ran just exactly like they normally did. So when we get back to that normalcy, I think things will change for the better for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, for his closing statement this evening, we will go to Town Council candidate Charles Farley. Mr. Farley, 60 seconds, sir.
Yes, is Betty Thorne in the audience? Number one on my list, eliminate the detested 72-hour right-of-way parking ordinance. Number three, community policing needs to be active again. I don't think we've had any since Charlie Blaylock retired. Also, bring back Community Watch. Our one police chief left and that program just went away. Visitors beach parking, that needs to be addressed big time. We must be the only beach on the Atlantic seaboard with unlimited free parking, mostly in front of subdivision houses. So that needs to be addressed. Last but not least, the budget. The budget shouldn't come to the councilors as take it or leave it. There should be three proposed budgets. One with the wish list, the new rec thing, and a tax increase. Another one, continuing resolution.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
And the last one, to cut taxes.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Next, for her closing statement this evening, we will go to Town Council candidate Lynn Mcdowell. Ms. Mcdowell, you have 60 seconds, ma'am.
Thank you. One thing I will work on is to try to unify this town. We have been subject to a lot of divisiveness over some issues in the past few years. Two biggest ones, sand and parking. I was amazed when parking came up, I don't know, 3 years ago or so. Just people going at each other on both sides of the issue, and it was ugly. And we've seen some of the same thing with the engineered beach proposal. We need to pull together because we do have other issues to tackle, and it's going to take all of us. One of the things that attracted my husband and me to this town was that it had a sense of community that we thought was lacking on the other Brunswick beaches. And so here we are, and that sense of community has been trickling away, and I really want to try to reestablish that. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, for his closing statement this evening, we will go to Town Council candidate John Bach. Mr. Bach, you have 60 seconds, sir.
Thank you, sir, for moderating, and I thank the league again for sponsoring this. I think it's been a very healthy exchange of ideas. It's good for a community to have a certain amount of tension around ideas. But I will say this, we need to be clear-eyed and tough-minded because the problems that we have, and they've been enumerated tonight, none of them lend themselves to any easy solutions. Don't believe that. They don't. So I know this. We cannot alter the past. We can only design a better future, and that involves making choices, establishing priorities. And here is the thing. We are not divided as a community. We can find common ground. We're not going to find unanimity. We can move together, plan together, and build a better community together. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. For his closing statement this evening, we will go to Town Council candidate Mr. Bill Kraft. Mr. Kraft, 60 seconds, sir.
Mahatma Gandhi, be the voice, be the change you want to see. That's why I'm running. I got tired of watching what was taking place. I want to make a change. I want to be your voice. I want to represent the people of Oak Island. I want to represent the taxpayers. I want the little people to have a voice and have somebody they can go to. Now, relationship building. I respect Councilman Bach, but if it's that difficult with the State Department of Transportation, let's create better relationships. They're out there. Let's go be their friends. Let's create some relationships, get some conversation going back and forth. I respect Councilman Scott. Stormwater runoff. 10 years ago, 8 years ago, 6 years ago, nothing was being done. 3 months ago, we hired an engineering firm. Up until 3 months ago, the stormwater runoff system in Oak Island was a pump truck, a pickup truck, and a sump pump. That's what we use for stormwater runoff.
Thank you, sir.
We can do better.
Thank you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, will you please give our candidates a round of applause? Thank you, each and every one of you, for signing up. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your volunteerism. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us for these two forums this evening, presented by the League of Women Voters and the Town of Oak Island. I'm Jon Evans of WECT News. Make sure you get out and vote on Election Day. Vote early if you can, but make your voice heard. and get out and vote. Thank you. Good night, everybody.